Shalom. So in this video, we're going to talk about healing emotional or mental pain in the body through the Spirit, through the application of the Word of the Most High. A lot of us might be going through some of these emotions and feelings here right now, but guess what? We're not alone. You are not alone. Some of us been through it. Some of us are yet going through it. Some of us are facing them for the first time, and some of us are still repeating, reliving the same experiences. But just know that this is common to man. You are not alone. And we're going to deal with this once and for all. We're going to fix it. And we're not going to be using all these physical things. Because what? The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They're not physical. So if it's mental, we're not going to be trying to use physical things to deal with it. We are going to face it using what? The Spirit, the Word of the Most High. The understanding of the Most High. The question is, why do we keep reliving our afflictions? Doesn't matter what it is. However, we are afflicted emotionally, mentally, right? Why do we keep reliving these experiences? Like I said, we want to fix non-physical problems with physical solutions. Can we be honest with ourselves? Can we speak freely? Let's be honest. How do we try to fix most of these problems when we are going through them? We resort to physical things such as alcohol, parties, smoking, drugs, relationships, which are not really relationships, retail therapy, which is shopping, right? Because these things kind of give us an ease of mind. It kind of relieves us of the misery, but that's just only temporary. Because as soon as those things wear off, guess what? We go right back to the same thing. So it's a cycle. Now, how do you know that these methods, the drinking, the smoking, the sex, the this, the that, how do you know that they never worked? What conclusion do you have to say it never worked? Because none of these methods do not prevent us from reliving the same patterns. And if there's a pattern, it means there is a bad habit. And if there's a bad habit, that means there's a problem. So we need to find this problem and solve it. Now we're going to go through this exercise by answering three main questions, and these three questions are going to help out throughout this exercise. So the first question is, why is the bad habit so hard to identify? Why is the bad habit so hard to identify? Because if most of us had identified the bad habit, guess what? We would have already fixed our problems. The reason why we cannot fix it because we don't know what is the bad habit in these situations. The second question is, how do we even identify the bad habit? So first is the what, now it's the how. Now the third question is, what do we do about the bad habits? Let's start by answering the first question. Why is the bad habit so hard to identify? The answer is because it is an illusion. Now, before we get to the illusion in this exercise, let's use an example that we can all relate to, where there's no ego, meaning where there's no story involved. We're all neutral with that experience. So we can see how we really deal with illusions, and then we can come back to the actual situation. So let's come up with an illusion. Let's think about a ship. Let's think about a ship. You're standing here at the beach or wherever, right? Here you are looking at the horizon, and here is a ship. You're watching the ship going out. And as soon as it gets to the horizon, it disappears, right? So what you've always concluded is that it's going down a curvature, right? That has been your stories for years until you've grown up. Now you say one day you want to do what? You want to witness the ship going down the curvature for yourself. So one day you take your boat and you go out there and you're traveling behind the ship. But what you realize is once the ship gets to this horizon, guess what? You're still seeing the ship. By witnessing, the only thing that is left to do is to what? is to drop the belief that the ship was going down a curvature. You have to surrender that belief to do what? To accept this new understanding that, oh, there's no curvature that is in existence. This curvature does not exist. It was only my mind creating a story for something that it did not understand. So the best story to put on this is to what? To say it goes down the curve. But know that you are the true witness of this. Your next thing is to surrender the belief that says there is a curve, that the ship is going down. Now, this is where you apply Matthew 9 and verse 17. You cannot put new wine into old bottles, right? What is the new wine? This new understanding. What is the old bottle? The mind. And the old wine is the belief that the ship goes down the curvature. So now you have to completely eradicate that. You have to get rid of that. So now you're coming with this new mind and this new knowledge, this new understanding that what? The curve does not exist. It was my perception that was doing that because my perceptions are limited. And therefore I have to put a story to justify the limitations of my mind so that it can be real to my mind, which is to my imagination or my perception. So now you're going to put this new wine in this new bottle, this new understanding in your mind. So what you're actually doing is you're changing the interpretation that you have on this experience. And that's how you deal with illusion. You do not try to do anything about the illusion itself. You change the interpretation. Now the interpretation is based on what? On the actual experience. You're not using your mind to formulate or to conclude or to apply its own opinion or judgment, because that's all the mind does. It judges. And its judgment is not based on something greater than it. Its judgment is based upon its own limited perceptions. So we need to get rid of the judgment out of the picture. Now, also, we're not going to allow the mind to misuse this understanding and take it for what it wants it to be either. This understanding needs to be superior to the mind. So we have to also understand that having this understanding that the ship goes out, it doesn't go down, you're not trying to get rid of the illusions that the ship goes down. So guess what? When you go back to the shore and now the ship comes and it's going there, you're going to still see the illusion, but what's going to change is your belief that the ship is going down a curve. Now your understanding is, oh, it's coming out of the view of the limitations of my sight. I cannot see beyond the horizon, therefore this is where the sight of the ship ends. This is where my perception, how I perceive the ship, ends. You're not lost in the illusion anymore. You're not confused about the illusion anymore. You're not sad about the illusion anymore. This illusion does not affect you anymore. So now we're going to deal with the same thing on a more personal level. So going back to our 3 questions, why is the bad habit so hard to identify? Which we established that it's what? It's an illusion, right? In order for us to understand the bad habit, we have to first see the illusion for what it is. Now, in this case, what is the illusion? When we are going through all our problems, what is the illusion? Let's say, for example, a person going through sadness. How do we speak about this? Or what is the belief that we have? We say, oh, somebody say, what's wrong with you? Oh, I am sad. I am confused. I am worn out. I'm sorrowful. I am guilty. I am shameful. I am disappointed. I'm overwhelmed. Okay? Right. So all this that you just discussed, all these answers that you just gave, guess what? It's pertaining to what? The mind. The mind. All of this is pertaining to the mind. Sad, overwhelmed, disappointed, shame, guilt. All of this is pertaining to the mind. So now we're seeing that I am the mind, right? Now, somebody asks you what's wrong. You say, oh, I am tense, I am numb, I'm suffocating, and so forth. But these are not experienced in the mind, these are experienced in the body. So now you become what? The body. So here's where it is. Which one are you? Are you the mind or are you the body? Or are you both? You have to see what you are in this experience. And remember, you have to get closer. You are no longer standing at the shore looking at the ship at the horizon. You are now going to that horizon with your personal experience, whatever it is you're going through. You want to be a witness, but in order for you to be a witness, you have to first be what? Unbiased. That means you're not going to face it with your preconceived judgment, because that's all the mind does. It judges based on its own perception or memory, meaning experiences that it is familiar with. So you're no longer facing it with judgments. You're facing it free, right? Free of judgments. And remember, in our third question, in terms of what we do about it, remember, we are not doing anything about the problem. We're not trying to change this sadness that we're experiencing. We're not trying to change the jealousy, the anger, the overwhelm, the feeling of disappointment, the regret, the shame, the guilt. We are not trying to change it. All we're doing is trying to understand. We want to see it for what it is. So now we're dealing with the direct experience, so that we can be a true witness, an unbiased witness to our own experience. So now that you understand that, wait, if I am the body, but my body does not experience sadness, and if I am the mind, but my mind does not experience this tense or this numb feeling, so what is the bad habit here? The bad habit is, what do I refer to as I am? You see, sometimes we're referring to the body as a self. Sometimes we're referring to the mind as a self. It's like a chameleon, the body, the mind. But it's neither. So the illusion is that the mind or the body is the self that you call I am. So what happens is, now you're equating what you are, you're equating what you experience in your mind and in your body as these experiences. So what is the bad habit? Not the sadness, not the jealousy, not the anger, not the overwhelm, not the confused, not the isolation. The bad habit is the self that everything revolves around, because it does not exist. And then you now have to understand that when you're referring to your body or your mind as a self, that is the illusion, and that illusion, all your problems revolve around this, because it is just a belief. What is the belief? The illusion. What was the belief in the first analogy, in the analogy of the ship? That it's going down a curve. Now you see it for what it is. Guess what? You have to now get rid of that belief. So now it's the same thing. We're going to put new wine into new bottles. So no, what you are is not the body. What you are is not the mind. There's a self is created here, but it's only in our belief system. So guess what? Now we have to surrender that belief. We have to give it up. Just like how you have to give up the belief that the ship is going down the curvature, you have to give up the belief that your body is a self and that your mind is a self. Right? So what is the true self that exists in this situation? The true self is the spirit. The spirit is what you are, and that spirit is knowledge. That spirit is knowing. That spirit is, in Hebrew we say, da'af. And it is the spirit that knows all things. The mind perceives things. The spirit knows for a certainty. Just as the mind perceives that there's a curvature at the horizon, the spirit in the experience knows for sure that there's no curvature. So you need to be established in that new knowledge, which is going to take time. You have to keep reminding yourself that what's going on in your body is not what you are. What's going on in your mind is not what you are. You know that it's happening, but you are not it. So that's the new understanding you're going to be established in. And what's going to happen over a process of time is you're going to realize that the intensity or the discomfort of the feeling in the body or in the mind is going to be what? It's going to be less and less and less until it's totally purged from both the mind and the body. At first, it's going to leave the mind, but it's going to take longer in the body. But over a process of time, it's going to wear out. So even if an experience comes up again, where you're experiencing the sadness, the feeling of jealousy, anger, disappointment, guess what? It's not going to take that hold on you as it took hold when it was what? It was a false sense of self. And no, you don't need all these pills to get rid of whatever you're going through. You just need to face it, face whatever you're going through without judgment. It is the judgment that is causing our psychological suffering. It is the judgment that keeps the intensity of what we're going through. How do we judge it? You don't consciously put a judgment. But guess what? But guess what? The judgment is, I am sad and I don't like it. I am jealous and I don't like it. I am angry and I don't like it. You're not verbally saying it, but inside, that's what your body is saying. That's what your mind is saying. And therefore, because you don't like it, you're trying everything in your power to not feel it now. So what? There comes the alcohol. There comes the smoking. There comes the partying. There comes the random sex. There comes all of these things. So you're adding illusions to get rid of illusions. That never works. You add understanding to illusion to take away the effect of the illusion. The illusion is still going to be there, but the effect it carries will no longer be there. So the only thing that we need to judge any situation is what? The word of the Most High. He says, don't put new wine into old bottles, and that's all we have to do. Surrender the belief that there is a self in the body and there is a self in the mind. Come to the understanding that this does not exist. This is not an actual self, but it is a belief. And a self is created around that belief. And once you're free from that, by this new understanding, guess what? You can go back through any of these and it doesn't carry the same effect. It doesn't stress you out. It doesn't stop you from going to work. It doesn't stop you from doing what you have a passion for. It doesn't break your spirit where you just locked up, isolated in your room. You don't want to hear anything from anybody. You reach to the point where no one understands me and this and that. It's not going to put you through that anymore. But that was your first experience because you did not have this new understanding. But now that you get it and you're going to start applying it until you're established. Because when you try it for the first time and it works, you might get comfortable because this is always at work. It wants you to get comfortable, so it's going to resort back to what it is familiar with. That is the nature of the mind. You don't like the fear? Guess what? Because it's not fully purged from you, you're going to resort back to it because you're not established in this new knowledge, in this new wine. You have to be established to the point where what? There is no going back. There is no return. You burnt that house down. It's just the ashes there. There's nothing there to go back to. And that's where we have to be established. That's the point that we need to be established, where you know that no matter what happens, even if you end up in Job's situation, losing everything, you are not going to go back to that point. You're not going to go back to drinking away your sorrows. You're not going to go back to anything. You keep fighting with the Spirit of God, with the Word of the Most High. You meditate upon His Word. So yes, all these weapons are going to be formed against you, but guess what? They are not supposed to prevail against you. So you're not stopping the weapons from forming, but you know it's not going to prevail. But so I hope this gives clarity and understanding what we're going through psychologically, emotionally, or whichever way we are going through them. And all we need to do is to apply a new interpretation from the place of knowing and not allowing our minds to interpret our situations for us. Because the mind is only going to take it from the memory. The memory is going to bring up what it is familiar with. And it's going to form a conclusion to say it's the same thing. No, it's not the same. It can be similar, but it's not the same. So if someone slaps you here, and another person comes and slaps you here, memory is going to tell you that it's the same. It's not the same. So we have to have this, we have to understand this, we have to be able to discern that yes, you might have been through an abusive relationship 10 years ago, but this person that you're with now, you have to understand that he is not him or she is not her. Memory is going to be telling you it's the same. You've been through you've been molested in the dark, and guess what? Every time that it gets dark, you start to get into that thing. You have to be strong enough to discern, to understand that this darkness tonight is not the same darkness 20 years ago when you were molested. We have to come to this place of understanding. We have to come to the Spirit, and we have to take refuge there. Just as when back then, when something was wrong, when you did something wrong, or whatever the case is, you have to go to the temple until the priest dies, and then you are free from the avengers, right? The avengers of the blood, or whatever it is. It's the same thing. You're not going to that physical temple because this is now your temple. The Spirit within is your temple. And that's where you find peace. That's where you find your happiness. That's where you find everything. It all lies here. Shalom.